Hey, welcome to the X Podcast. We are so glad to have you for another episode. Around the table, I have two very good friends with me. I have John Russell.
I thought you were going to say very good-looking men.
I have two very good-looking men, and one of them is Russ, John Russ. Can I call you John Russ?
John Russell.
You don't like that, John Russell.
I don't like John.
You don't like John.
I don't mind John Russell.
You don't like John?
Or Russ or Russell.
Okay.
Just not John or John Russ.
Okay. Not John or John Russ.
There's no really
Yeah.
describe the
JR?
essence of me.
How about a JR?
JR.
Look at JR. That's kind of cool.
JR.
JR.
I've heard that before.
I kind of like that.
JRM, Germ.
Germ.
Don't like that.
No,
Don't
just
love it.
JR. You're
What
JR.
about- What about Russell Sprouts?
No. That's
not,
odd.
Not Rushmore.
No.
Nope.
Rushmore?
And we have
No.
Zachary Brown.
WrestleMania?
Zachary Brown Band.
Russell the Love Muscle?
Zach
Oh
Brown
my
Band.
gosh.
WrestleMania.
We have WrestleMania. Oh my gosh.
Who was your favorite WWE wrestler growing up? I know you had one.
100% Macho Man Randy Savage followed by Sting.
Okay.
Those are two good ones.
I like
Yeah.
Macho Man.
I love when
like,
Sting went to the dark side and painted his face like the Crow, all in black and white. That was the coolest moment.
See, I was a little bit before that, and it was just hard.
Yours was back in the 50s.
It was 50s. It was really hard not to love Hulk Hogan.
Oh my
Oh.
He
god.
was just the legend.
Hulkamaniac.
Like, it was
Hulkamania.
like, and that was like when I was watching.
Remember that one
when I
time
was,
you got really into
No,
to
I don't.
your message?
No, here it
and
goes
then-
again.
And everybody's,
Here it goes again.
everybody's hearing you go.
Here we go. No, I think you're the only one that's actually ever done
That's
that
actually
when
done
preaching.
I'm not gonna like confession. When I was watching the Super Bowl, The Rock did this whole like introduction thing.
It wasn't really an introduction
my favorite part of
speech. It was
Super
an
Bowl.
introduction of his bicep.
Whatever it was.
You talk about a
And-
guy who pumped iron for about 20 minutes and then held a microphone down like you were watching it like this, so you could everybody would look at it. He couldn't even get
Finally,
he could-
The Rock
Yeah.
has come back
and
to
he's like,
SoFi Stadium.
He's like trying to get his microphone around to his
Whatever-
mouth and he can't
I
because of
don't-
it's got to show his bicep.
I don't care what it was, whatever it was.
Ridiculous.
It was the most incredible part of the
It
Super
was.
Bowl.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was ready to go run through a brick wall after he was done.
Really?
oh, I was
it
telling
was-
him,
You guys,
I got
you guys
chills
have a bromance.
the
for
days
him. I just-
before Super Bowl.
The
when
Rock
he
is
was-
incredible. You don't like The Rock?
I like The Rock. I'm just not in
You're
love
just
with The
jealous.
Rock.
So,
The Rock is pretty cool.
days before the Super Bowl, he was posting
You are
clips
so
of
in
him
love
going
with
out
him.
on the field and practicing, and I got
Yeah.
chills then.
Did you?
That
Yeah.
was my favorite part of
Yeah.
the Super Bowl.
I couldn't get
I
past
wasn't
his
watching
biceps
clips
and his
before
purple
the
outfit.
Super Bowl,
I mean, his maroon
but-
outfit was dope. I couldn't get past his biceps and maroon outfit.
It was
See,
pretty-
I liked his shoes. I don't know what those
I didn't
were.
notice
Those
the
were amazing.
shoes,
He
but his
also had a
outfit.
really tiny waist. Big biceps, tiny waist.
Wow.
Yeah.
What else do you want to say? Guys, you seem really excited about this.
No,
What else about his
Anyway,
waist?
we
What
can
else
move
did you?
on.
I said- I
We can
just
move on from that.
okay. Anyways,
Yeah.
so
So Hulk Hogan.
yeah.
Macho
Sting, Macho,
Man.
Macho
But-
Man.
But
And
when,
then
when
The Rock.
Sting,
Remember the British,
Macho, and Hogan were all
You
together,
guys remember the British Bulldog?
or remember the SWO, the Wolf Pack formed? Don't turn your back on the Wolf Pack. You might wind up in a body bag.
Oh.
Remember?
Please.
What
tell me-
is going
please
on?
tell me we
No.
captured that.
I feel like this must have been WrestleMania in like 1998.
It was probably close.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like a decade older, so it would have been late 80s. And that you don't remember British the Bulldog?
No.
He came in with a bulldog.
Oh,
Like he had a, do you remember what was the one of my other kind of
I wasn't allowed to
favorites
watch
that was just because he was
WWE
what, one of the
wrestling growing up.
oh WWF when I was watching.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed
one-
to watch it?
Oh no. It was
Just Little House on the Prairie?
yeah.
what-
That makes
Oh my
sense.
gosh.
No, for real.
Well, I really liked oh shoot, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Was he the one with the with the
I
2x4?
remember that, yeah.
You remember with the 2x4?
Yeah,
That came in. So it was like the good guys. I like the good
You know
guys.
who he reminds me of? That's not the same as Diamond Dallas Page, is it?
No,
Remember
it's not.
DDP?
DDP is different. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, DDP. But I like Macho
know
Man.
way too
Oh.
many of
I
these.
know.
Oh.
I'm
It's
sorry.
so
Diamond Dallas
bad.
Page, I loved him. I love DDP.
I don't
Did you
think
play the
this is-
video games?
Okay, we've lost.
Oh, yeah, we have.
Anybody.
Sorry,
who's
for anybody that
listening,
is still
and they
here,
could
we're
care
gonna talk about some
less
real
about
things.
this.
Yes.
Anyways, there's been a lot going on in our world lately that's been a little crazy. As we record this, we have heightened tensions with Russia and
Oh, that was a
Ukraine
sharp turn.
continuing to go. What were you saying?
Sorry, I just said that was
What did you say?
that was a
Sharp turn.
Oh yeah, it was a sharp turn. Yes, we
Yes, it
went
was.
from WWE.
To
It's the
Russia
same
and
thing. We
Ukraine.
went from a fight in the ring to a fight in the
Fight
real world.
Yeah, okay.
And
makes sense.
Let's go
with
there.
with Russia and Ukraine, and it does
About to
feel
duke it
like
out.
it's a tinderbox ready to be lit any moment. And so I was thinking about here we are possibly, and this is crazy now, because I've been around for a few wars. You guys have been around to see some wars. I wasn't around really for Vietnam War. It was over before I was born. But, Desert Storm and Desert Shield, and then that kind of moved into Afghanistan. Those are kind of been probably the biggest conflicts I
Recently.
think really in maybe
Lifetime.
our lifetime for the most part. Other than you were Korean War, right?
No.
Okay. And
I can see that.
but just it's fascinating, I think, today culturally, like how we see everything, and we're so, I feel like we're far more in tune. Like back when Desert Storm happened, I was actually living in Germany at the time, but with military, and so like the way news came in was just fascinating, and you'd hear about it in like an article that came out in a paper. I mean, this was, again, there wasn't really internet. So, you're hearing all of those different things, and so you're kind of learning about what's happening in the world from either a news broadcast or this. Today, there's just information everywhere, any source that you want, anytime. And so I just wonder if the moment that we're staring at right now, what's it going to look like in 5 years?
Yeah.
What's it going to look like in 10 years? Are we on the verge of a massive war, and not just one between two nations in Europe, but are we going to be drug into this? Are other European countries going to be drug into this? Are there?
You sent us a fascinating article about some predictions you have.
I don't have any predictions. Stop. No, I did not.
Okay.
I sent you an article that was sent to me
Oh, okay.
about is it possible that this is the setting the stage for the end times? So I don't know about all that, but
There was a line though that was in that I actually agree that talked about
that
the
Putin
person who
is the
defines terms kind of controls the board.
Mm.
And I tell you what, I mean, I know it's the game of politicians always, and how you articulate things, how you paint the picture with words. But when Putin finally dropped all pretense about Ukraine and gave his speech, the way that he so masterfully crafted what they're doing, it's a peacekeeping force.
Oh, gosh,
Ukraine has never been a legitimate, independent. The way he crafted all of that, I was just
You
like,
were bought in.
you are annoyingly articulate and persuasive in I don't even think he really believes that. I could be wrong, but just the way he painted that, I was like, okay, you created a different solar system than the rest of us are looking at.
Yeah, I was thinking about just even some of the wars that we fought in as a nation. You look at Vietnam. You could probably look at even some people would say Afghanistan. There's some of the things that go, man, we end up on the other side of it sometimes with a lot of regret.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of pain and a lot of this, and I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I hope things don't escalate in on the border there of Russia, Ukraine. I don't want to see them be in a war. I want to see us be part of another war. It's like, don't you wish we could all get along? Yeah. And we don't. But maybe think about like this idea that I think all of us in our own personal lives, in a personal way, I think one of the things that we're always standing kind of at a crossroads. Every day is a new crossroads. You have decisions to make. You have direction. You move. And I think this idea, it kind of was just fascinating to me. Is how do we get 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, depending on how old you are, down the road and not look back with a lot of regret that I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't made that decision. I wish I hadn't invaded that, situation. I wish I hadn't gone into it. And so I thought maybe that's something that I think regret is such a powerful emotion. I think it's one of the most powerful emotions. And I think the last thing any of us want out of this life is to look back. And I think there's a lot of different ways that we look with regret. We look with regret and going, I wish I had. We can look back and go, I wish I hadn't. Things that we've said that we wish we could take back that we can't pull back in. There's so many different things. And I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about how do we how do we navigate today so that we are not filled or we do not face regret tomorrow? How do we approach today? And so I guess to kick it off, I would love to know would you say probably one of your greatest regrets?
You're just going to put me on the spot?
Top
Like
three.
that? Top three?
Just top three. Give us the Mount
Greatest
Rushmore
regret.
of your regrets.
Make sure one of them's the one you haven't shared before.
Yeah,
Probably.
one of them your wife doesn't even know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
No, there's lots
Breaking
of
news.
regrets. What if I had kept playing football? And
Wait, okay, so that's a regret, like as
my
what
full-ride
could have been.
Yes.
Okay.
It could have been.
Okay.
There's, of course, I can look back at moments with finances or grades or what. So I had actually had an opportunity
Grades.
to go into. I don't know if I've shared this story. So I was getting recruited to play football at West Point Military Academy, And I actually
in the Army.
Yes, I actually had an opportunity. I sought a nomination from the senator in the state of Ohio. I actually earned the nomination from the senator and had an opportunity to go play football at West Point. And
wow.
right before I was going to go, I was going to do all the paperwork and commit and do all the things. The football coaches told me, well, you're going to come in and you're not going to be one of our key guys, kind of more of a walk-on situation. And I was like, I don't want to go do that. And so I ended up saying no. And I'm like, what would my life have looked like if I had chosen to go 4 years at West Point and spend that
Wow.
time? That's a big
Your hair would be shorter.
Yeah. I might still be in the military.
You
Probably
might
wouldn't be
still be-
serving
Wow.
at the church. That's one of
So
those
one of your
things
greatest
I think.
regrets is not going into the military. How about you? What would you say?
No,
I think you two need to share about your greatest regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
No
I have a
regrets,
tattoo
baby.
that says no
No regrets.
no regrets.
I might get there. Let me say this. I think it's weird when people say they don't have regrets.
Oh
Yeah.
I
That's-
don't, but
that's
I
the
think for the
cultural
most part,
sentiment.
I understand what you guys are saying.
I'm
just kidding.
You know what? No, that's not true.
I share about them all the time. What are you talking about?
I had this thought this morning,
Yeah.
or whenever we were talking about this topic. I looked at you and not in an annoying way. Don't be offended, but in an annoyed / inspired way. I was like, I bet Pastor Tim does not have any regrets.
Oh, I do.
Because I feel like you just live such this disciplined, exemplary life. Like your whole life, you've just been. I don't know. I feel
No.
like you probably have very few regrets.
I do have some.
I
I think we all have regrets in every arena of life. I think we're going to look at it and go professionally. I
that
have
makes
some
me feel better.
regrets.
'Cause I feel like you wouldn't. I got plenty.
I've got investing
My
regrets. I
deepest-
tell them all the time.
My deepest
I mean-
regrets would always be regrets of conscience, probably. Like if I feel like I violated my conscience or something moral, or like
Yeah.
those would be mine. And I think, I mean, this sounds really cliche, but I do think for anybody that says they don't have regrets, I think it's good to point out there's a difference between having regrets and regrets having you. Like you shouldn't live a life of regret.
Right.
But to say that you don't regret, I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
I mean, like if I hurt someone and say,
Yeah.
I don't, no regrets.
No
Yeah,
regrets.
exactly.
No, I regret anytime I've hurt someone.
I regret-
I regret anytime I've made an unwise choice. I
Yeah.
regret those. I'm not going to live in regret, but if I don't regret it, that would show that I have no remorse, no growth, no wisdom, no.
Yeah.
You know, I do think it's interesting what you said though about coming from the place of war, because you talk about usually one side eventually is going to regret something they did. War in many ways is almost like chess.
We both love chess, so you're asking.
We do.
You're making calculated risk and strategic, hoping hoping that this outcome
Yeah.
will produce that outcome, and this
Yeah.
will produce that. So in many ways, life, war, and chess is all a game of wisdom
Yeah.
and choices.
It is. I think when I think about, yes, we all have regrets. I mean, I'm with you. Like I can think of people that I have leadership regrets.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can think back even just in the journey of the history of our church, some of the decisions that I've made. I'm like, gosh, that was so dumb. Or you know what I mean? Like it's the whole. You say to yourself, if I could go back and do it over
yeah.
again, I would do it so differently. There's so many things.
Right.
I mean, again, but I'm with you. I don't live with
Right.
constant regret. I
Yeah.
think when it comes to not living, let's just address that for a moment. Not living with constant regret. I think you'll always live with constant regret until you face your regret. I do think you have
That's
to
good.
face it.
That's
I
good.
think the reason why I don't, and it doesn't mean that I've repaired every relationship that I feel like I maybe did something that, that started, but I do feel like I've addressed
That's good.
most, if not all. I'm just trying to think in my head, but you know what I mean? Where like situations where it's like, okay, I went back to try to either apologize, even if there's no relationship.
Right.
I think where we end up living with regret is we don't go back and face. Which maybe relationally
good.
that's it, but even professionally, I don't know. Maybe sometimes you just move on professionally and you learn from it, but maybe even financially. I mean, there's some things I can't really go back and face some of those, but hopefully I can learn from them. So maybe
Or-
that's what you do.
Yeah, and I don't know. Not to get us on a tangent, but maybe you don't live in regret by facing it or by fixing it.
Yeah.
One of the ways you move from the past is you stop dragging the past with you in
Yeah.
their current patterns.
Yeah.
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 It's easier to forgive yourself once that's no longer a thing in your life,
It's good.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think about the idea of, I mean, if you constantly run into the same relational pattern and you are going to face that same regret over and over.
Yeah.
So if you do not learn and fix
Yeah.
the you, the how it operates, whatever, you're going to repeat it again. So you're just going to experience the pain of regret over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a reality. So I guess in the ideal when it comes to like regret and dealing with it and facing it, how do we? Let's talk for a second, because I don't think any of us want to get to down the road another 10 years, 20 years and go, boy, I wish. I mean, one that I can. It's not regret. Let me say this. There's not a lot of regret in regards to family and children and kids. Like, not them, but there's moments that I feel like I've missed because I was probably so invested in ministry or things like that I'm like, you kind of look back on those and they grow up, and then all of a sudden you kind of go, wow, I didn't miss a lot. I was there, so I don't have a lot of regret in that category. But I think the emotion of that, I think, is something that is identifiable, which is to get to a point where things have changed, they're different now, and you look back and go, I wish I had not taken that person as much for granted. I wish I'd seen how much they really meant to me and impacted me, and I treated them a little better. I wish that, Yeah. And so I guess the question is, how do we avoid tomorrow's regrets? That, to me, is, I think, the question. If we can, not say get a formula, but if we can process that and how do I avoid tomorrow's regrets, I think it could actually save us a lot of pain in life.
Yeah.
Well, I think when it comes to avoiding tomorrow's regrets, the first question you have to ask yourself is, before you make decisions, who are you having conversations with that can maybe help you avoid some of the mistakes that you make?
Yeah.
So I think about the verse in Scripture where it says that wisdom comes in the multitude of counselors. And so how many times do we rush into a decision or make a decision that we eventually regret, where we could have potentially avoided that if we had just taken the time to have a conversation with people? And so I think the question is I mean, for me, I'm younger. There's still a lot of life that I'm still trying to figure out, to parse together. And so I always ask myself, who do I need to have a conversation with? Who do I trust? Who has gone before me that maybe I can pick their brain? I can ask a question. I can seek a perspective that maybe I don't have that could potentially help me from making a decision that I would end up regretting.
Yeah.
Not that I'm going to be perfect, or not that I'm always going to choose the right thing, but I think it starts with being willing to have conversations.
Yeah.
And pride can get in the way of that.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
so being willing to just say, hey, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And because I don't have all the answers, I need to seek counsel.
Yeah, that's good. I was telling you the other day, I feel like airplanes are kind of like my second home.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and when you're about to fly up, the pilot, if they're a communicative pilot, will usually say, "Hey, like, we got clear skies for a while. We expect a couple chops here and there, maybe a little turbulence." Or he'll tell you. And the way that they know that is, yes, they have radars, they have weather patterns, but actually the way that they know how choppy the air is from the planes that are going in front of them. And
Yeah.
it reminded me of, I know you always make fun of me for remembering these random things, but like 15 years ago or so, I read a book by Donald Miller on fatherlessness. It's called Father Fiction, and is talking about how to integrate wisdom into your life as a young man. And one of the chapters was called Choppy Air. And he said the power of wisdom is you get people that can tell you where to look out for choppy air,
Yeah.
because they've already gone.
Yeah.
It's not that they're better than you. They're up ahead, so they can tell you, hey, steer clear here, go west here, go south here.
I think though, what's interesting. I think we have no shortage today, as connected as we are, of learning from other people's mistakes and other people's experience. But let's also be honest. In general, do we do that? Are we really good at it? Or are we bad at it? Because I think I think we all probably have heard that. Hey, learn from someone else's mistakes so you don't make them yourself. But I think we all know that. But I think maybe this is the difference between having the wisdom in situations or not. But I think we still do what we want to do rather than heeding the advice, because most of the time that advice that might save us from the pain is usually telling us to not do what we really want to do in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm with you. Like we should learn, but there are things that keep us from doing that for some reason.
Yeah. It's like, was it Toby Mac, DC Talk? Some people got to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Is it weird? That always pops in my mind. No, it's so true. I think wisdom really, we're talking about wisdom. And we're talking about, okay, what pain are you going to choose? Are you going to choose the pain of denying yourself the pleasure? Or are you going to choose the later pain of regret? Part of life is choosing your no.
Yeah.
Is choosing what pain do you want? Do you want the pain of discipline and self-denial, or do you want the pain of regret? What do you want? The cheap, temporary, immediate satisfaction, or I think I told you the other day, for whatever reason, one of the mottos that's been in my mind over the last couple months, is I heard this from a Chad Veach leadership podcast, is he said, in general in life, let's just be honest, denial is almost always more satisfying than indulgence.
Yeah, I think I did hear that
makes
recently.
sense.
And I don't know why,
we
but
need to
that's been
flesh
like
that out though, because I don't think people really do think that.
But it's so true. I mean,
Denial is more
is more satisfying.
more satisfying
Like,
than indulgence.
than indulgence.
Than buying,
Yes.
saying no and not buying
Yes.
that thing that you have had your
Right.
eye on for 2 weeks, but you
Right.
want to, but you don't have the money,
Right.
is more satisfying.
Yes.
It's
But you know why?
Flesh that out a little
Yeah.
bit. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm
So-
just saying
so-
why.
So I'll just be really practical. In the month of November and December, I felt some of my disciplines be really out of whack. As far as sleep, diet, was eating whatever the heck I wanted to, was not in the gym like I should be.
What were you eating?
I mean, just everything.
What do you
Pizza and just everything. And then I went on a pretty radical, fast/diet cleanse, whatever, for about 30 days. Where for 30 days I had no sugar, no meat, no empty carbs. I mean, it was plant-based with some fish, and I worked out like crazy during those days.
Yeah.
And I got up early, and I just and honestly, I mean, about 5 days into it, I was like, this feels way more satisfying.
Yes.
Now there's the momentary seconds of pleasure of
Chocolate cake.
Yes, of chocolate cake. But then
Ice
when you
cream.
do allow yourself to indulge in a healthy
Little
way,
Debbie's.
that feels way better. But then your overall life feels
agree.
more satisfying.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's something. What is it? Andy Stanley says, compromise doesn't resolve the tension; it just weakens your resolve. So when you compromise, the tension of the temptation that you just did, I know we're going off, doesn't go away.
No.
You just weakened your resolve to say no next time.
Yeah.
But there's actually something really satisfying about being able to deny yourself in a healthy way. Not going against self-care, not going against rewarding yourself and enjoying and having balance and enjoying all that. But in the ways, let's say it this way: when you say a no right now for a better yes later,
Yeah.
you never have regret.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you can apply that too. Even just, trying to eat healthy, like you said, trying to lose weight. It's hard saying
Right.
no to some things that you crave in that moment.
But you know what it is?
But then when you see results,
Yes.
you're like, that outweighs a
Right.
momentary that tasted really good in that moment. And you have to keep telling yourself that
Yeah.
because we are so tempted to the now. I
Yeah.
feel like temptation to do the now and to follow our emotions and I'm not talking about food now, but follow
Right.
our appetites.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think as a whole, and I'm not trying to apply this on everybody, but I just think kind of as almost the standard in our culture has been follow your heart, do what it wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
You deserve. I deserve.
Yeah.
I deserve this now. Why should I have to wait? I mean, one of the big things I've seen financially is like for the last 20 years is a generation growing up going, I deserve everything my parents have now.
Yeah.
Even
Well,
though
it's-
they've worked for 20
Well,
years.
what
They
you
want
said-
the grand countertops
but I
now.
want
They
it
want
now.
this thing now.
And so I'm going to go into massive debt, which is,
Yeah.
by the way, a massive regret. One
Yeah.
day you
Right.
wake up and you go, gosh, we're buried under this.
Well, and part of it goes back to the question you asked. Sorry, is
Yeah.
what I meant to is you said, okay, even if you know that there's going to be that pain, why do you still do it? And so I think that's where it goes. Maybe a thought is that the driving force to make you apply wisdom is vision. That if you don't have a compelling vision, you're not going to have the desire to apply the wisdom. Because it's kind of like, was it Dave Ramsey, the bottom page of every page in Total Money Makeover was this quote, live like no one else now so you can live like no one else later. Because the whole now thing, Levi Lusko in his book on sex and purity, his whole thing was now screams louder, but later lasts longer. It is that constant battle of what am I choosing?
And I think, so you guys brought up a couple good examples when it comes to finances, when it comes to like our diet and eating. But I think another one that's probably overlooked in our culture is relationships. I think it's so easy in our culture today to take advantage of each other. I think sometimes, I think you were just preaching this past weekend that oftentimes it's the people we're closest to that we take
Yeah.
for granted.
That's the most important relationships in our life tend to get the least amount of time.
Yeah. And we talk about regret. man, I don't
Yeah.
want to get to the end of my life and realize that there were some important relationships that because I took for granted, or because there were other things I would rather be doing in the moment that
Yeah.
maybe I enjoy, whether it's watching a football game or taking care of something. And not that those aren't productive things, or not that they're not fine
Well, watching
things.
football is not productive, but it's fun.
It is if you're watching the Buckeyes, but that's fine. Anyways.
No, I agree. I mean, and I think that there's one of the things that I did say, and I actually, it was funny because I had a couple people actually that were a little bit more, let me say, experienced in life, that just came and kind of reiterated what I was saying is true, because I'm kind of in that maybe middle zone, and I'm thinking people are older than I am. And I just said, why is it that when you talk to a grandparent or a great-grandparent or someone who's lived some life, that it seems like they don't care what they drive, they don't care what they wear, they don't care what their house looks like, they don't care how dated it is, they don't care about any of that stuff. All they really care about is when their kids and grandkids are coming over.
Yeah.
It's because I think it's taken pursuing everything in life to get to a point where you realize none of that stuff really matters. It's not the most important thing.
Right.
But we get lost in that trap of thinking that's what's going to make us happy. And you get somebody that's a little bit further down the road, and they're saying, you know what, the only thing that makes you happy is real relationships in your life,
Yeah.
real connections, and that's where I try to absorb that. I think it's really hard in my place in life, because I'm still this, it's like the thought of retirement to me scares me. You know, the thought, like, I don't know that I could ever retire.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I'm so kind of like wired and driven to do and accomplish, and that's not always a good thing. But I feel like that I know where I am in this place in life, but I think now, and I would just say this in the last couple years, and this is probably a sad indictment of the previous 20, but I'm just now in the last probably 4 years, 5 years, whatever, getting to a place where, and maybe it's because I'm reaching a certain age, where I'm starting to kind of recognize and go, I'm starting to pay attention. I'm starting to pay attention to people who are 20 years older than I am. I would pay attention to someone that I knew that just went through a massive surgery, that just never would go to the doctor, just kind of ignored things over and over and over until it got to the point where it was so bad that had to have surgery. And the recovery from the surgery is so hard and all this. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't want to end up in the hospital doing that. But what's hard is that same thing with eating and everything else. We don't think about 20 years from now.
Right.
We don't live with 20 years in mind.
No.
30 years from now. We live right now.
Yeah.
And so it's even like retirement, like saving for retirement. Who likes to save for retirement? That's awful. You put money away year after year, decade after decade, that you never touch.
Yep.
But then when you meet some people, or you get to know some people real close, and maybe they were people you respected, and you knew them when you were 20 and they were 40, and now they're at an age where they're retiring, and you're going, oh, look at the life that, they're actually traveling, and they're actually going on these trips, and they're actually spending time here, and they're actually doing, that looks like a lot of fun. I guess maybe I should save for retirement. You know what I mean? So, so I think I feel like I'm just now waking up to this perspective that I wish I had when I was 25.
It's almost like, what is it, Judah Smith and Justin Bieber, they got that tattoo.
Oh, yeah, better at 70.
Better at 70. But isn't the opposite true, though? I mean, sometimes I think we say...
How can both be true?
Well, better at 70, or sometimes we say older is wiser, but that isn't always the case, though.
It's not always. I don't think wisdom always goes with age.
I think when you find someone who's older who has applied wisdom to their life, it's often because they have taken their regrets and they've learned from them. Yeah. And I think that's a skill that it's hard to define, but it's also hard to do. But if you can somehow find a way to learn from your regrets and apply that wisdom and knowledge to your life, that can help you get to a place where you are better.
Well, I think
70.
let me just. This is in my mind when I think about wisdom, because I think even the Bible kind of differentiates these two. There's a difference between information and wisdom.
Yeah.
Right now we live in an age of information, and there is no lack of information. And so I feel like there's a whole idea like, I think we sometimes think we're smarter than we really are because we have access to a lot of information.
Wikipedia.
Anytime I need something, WebMD, I don't need to go see a doctor. I just look it up, and these symptoms, I think it's this, and so I think because of that access to information, we are kind of deceiving ourselves into thinking that we're wise. There's a big difference to me. Wisdom to me is applying information in your life. And I think that's one thing that it's easy for us to do, and it's hard to do, is become self-aware enough that we go, I have all of the answers around me available. But if I don't actually apply that to my life, which means I might have to choose to do Financial Peace University, and I'm going to have to say no to some things now. I'm going to have to cut up some credit cards, in the world of finances. Or I'm going to say no to working all those extra hours, even though I think it would get me a promotion because my kids are only going to be 3 and 6 years old. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to make sure that I'm not gone. Or I have an opportunity to take a job that is going to be incredible, but I'm going to have to pick up my family. We're going to move to another state. We're going to move away from grandma and grandpa. We're going to move away from our church, but they're going to pay me more money. What am I going to do?
Right.
And I think we have never lived in a time where we have so much available to us, but wisdom is applying. I would say this: wisdom is not just applying information to your life. Maybe we could say wisdom is applying the right information in your life.
I heard,
It's applying the right.
That's
It's making the right choice today.
I heard one of the simplest and best definitions of wisdom recently. Wisdom is the skill at living well. Like if you look at Proverbs, it teaches you how to live well.
Yeah.
So in an oversaturation of knowledge where this world has all the information, there seems to be a famine of wisdom on how to actually live well.
Yeah, that's so good because, and I love this other verse. Again, I know we're using a lot of verses from the Bible, but Jesus even said this: wisdom is proved right by her children. And for the longest time, for years, I'm like, what does that even mean? Well, at the end of the day, it's your choices you make today, you'll know through the next, not just even the next generation. That's just a metaphor, but you'll know down the road.
You'll know by the fruit of the next
You'll know
season.
by the fruit. Yeah. What you sowed in this season, you'll know by the fruit of what comes out in the next. And so, to me, that phrase has so much power because I think that there's a lot of things that people. I know because I think a lot of what it is that we make a lot of decisions today and we don't know which ones are wise and which are foolish.
Yeah.
But we will find out
Yes, we
by what comes from. It's like as a parent. It's one of the things I was talking about this past week. I kind of, again, I don't know when this episode's coming out, but I pushed in people's faces about just even the world of sports. I know you did. I guarantee there were parents that did not. And I'm not an anti-sports, but I'm just saying if we do everything that everybody around us is doing, okay, in the time, it might feel okay. Well, it's going to feel like, well, everybody's doing this, and we got our friends and this. That's great, but what we don't know is what our family dynamic is going to look like 15 years from now. So when we go 24/7, 365, all in on my kid being a multi-sport athlete, that they could go professional in baseball and football, and they're going to do year-round training. And when they're not doing football, they're doing baseball. When they're not doing baseball, they're doing football training. And I'm not saying that stuff is bad. I'm just saying when we do that at the cost of the family relationship, the mother and daughter, the sibling relationship, the community of faith relationship, when that happens at the cost of these things, you'll find out eventually. And no one wants to believe they're wrong. I'm just doing the best thing. And I think all of us are trying to do the best that we can. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that's the scary part about regret. That's the scary part about wisdom. We will find out 10 or 20 years from now whether or not the decisions that we made in this season were the wise.
Yeah.
That's what's scary.
Yeah. No, it's so true.
It is
It's
true.
so true.
When I think about, I've got young kids. I got a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-month-old. And I remember my time as a youth pastor, there would be people who would come to me and they would say, hey, Zach, can you fix my kid? And, and I'll say, yeah, I'll do what I can, and we'll try to do that. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, the problem is that there wasn't patterns and things set in place when they were younger. I know we're using this example of parenting, but
there may have been no discipline.
No
There may have been
discipline,
whatever. Now their
it
kid's
was.
unruly and.
But for me, for my wife and I, we're looking at what we're doing and we're saying, how can we use wisdom now? What can we plant and sow now into our kids that we can see bear fruit in the next season of their life? And I just think what you just said is so true, that what you're planting now, the decisions you're making now, you're going to see if they're good or not based on the fruit that comes.
Okay, so then let's draw all this to kind of something practical, applicable. What can we do today to find wisdom?
Well,
what can we do today to actually and not guess wisdom? Not what can we do to go, hey, in whatever arena? This is, I think, making the wisest decision today, even though you won't know the answer to that until tomorrow.
A few practical things. Number one, go back to vision. So a wise person will make choices that fall in line with the vision.
Let
of
me
their
say
life.
it this way. I just want a practical term because I think some people listen to this go, man, I don't know how to get
So
vision.
decide-
Work backwards.
Yeah, work backwards. Decide what do I want of my life. You can't predict every outcome, but in general, what direction do you want to see your life go? What kind of person do you want to become? What kind of things would you like to accomplish?
Yeah. Work backwards.
Based on that, what kind of person you're going to have to become? What choices are going to fuel that?
Mm-hmm.
Write out 5 years from now. I'd like to be like this as a person and be doing this. Well, then what choices would fuel that? What is it? Andy Stanley says, wisdom is asking the question, in light of my past experiences and in light of my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do?
Yeah.
A wise person will ask a lot of good questions. And it sounds so stupid, insultingly simple, but one of the wise things that a wise person does is ask the question in moments, what's the wise thing to do? Sometimes just asking the question
by
is
the
like,
way,
good question.
by the way, I would just to jump in on that. Andy Stanley, I don't even know if the series and stuff about his stuff on that I think is some
so
of the
good.
best.
It's so good.
I love that question because I think often in our culture we're asking, is this right or is this wrong? Is this something that I want to do? But if we pause in every decision, big, little bit, we say, is this the wise thing to do? It causes us to really ask that question, what's the wise answer?
A wise person will ask wise questions. I mean, even if you
That's it.
like,
Ask wise questions.
Yeah.
Like I heard Craig Rochelle say this like 3 years ago, and it's so stupidly simple, but sometimes this helps me as a leader. Is he said a great question to ask yourself, as simple as it sounds, is in a really complicated work situation or leadership situation, ask yourself, in this moment, what would a great leader do?
Put yourself in their shoes,
And I'm just
right?
like that immediately infuses a framework from which I'm going to begin to operate. And then, I mean, we were talking about this offline, but another thing that wise people do is wise people seek out wisdom.
Yeah.
So find wise people. Read books by wise people that are further along in whatever area of it is. Proverbs, even if you're not a person of faith, read Proverbs and your business will flourish and your relationships will flourish. So seek
get
out
wisdom at all costs, any cost.
And the Bible says that the person who associates with the wise will become wise.
Yep.
Person who associates with fools become fools. If you hang out with foolish people, you will not become wise, you'll become foolish. So find people of wisdom. Find people who have integrity and who have healthy mindsets, who use discretion, and surround you. You cannot help but become more and more like the people you're around. So do that with the people that you surround yourself with in relationship with, and then find ways. I mean, even if you're not a reader, I still think the leaders are readers. But if you're not a reader, podcast, whatever it is,
How about
the information.
wise people
Wise
are
people.
readers?
I like that.
Let's not just
There
say
you
leaders are.
Wise
Wise
people.
people are. So I want to
like that.
encapsulate some of the things that you said, and if you got any thoughts to add,
Yeah, I
because
do.
I don't feel like I need to add to it because I think, but I want to okay, you said a bunch of different things, and they were all great, and I want to mention them. This is practical. So again, wisdom is about applying this. So a conversation like this, if you're listening in, I mean, that's great, but whatever area where you have those questions, whether it's your finances, your children, parenting, whether it's your professional, whether it's your marriage or dating or relationship, or whether it's saving for retirement, whatever, I think one of the first things is start with the end in mind. So if you're you got little kids, you guys have little kids, you have little kids. You have little Russell Sprouts? No Russell Sprouts. That's what we call them. When you have kids, Russell Sprouts.
One day.
But I
Brandon
think,
Wedge, shout out.
yeah, that was Brandon Wedge's thing. Wasn't it? I love it, Russell Sprouts. But one of the things to ask is, hey, when my kids are grown and moving out of the house, like pick a season of your life, grown and move, because I'm in that season where one's moved out, the other one's going to be a senior next year. What do I want? See, like I'm looking from this and going, geez, one of the most important things that I think you would ever want as a parent, because I'm in the season right now, is to have a really good friend. I want to end up with a really good friend relationship with my kids. Okay? And there's seasons. You can't always be their friends. There are
Right.
seasons where you got to be the coach. There's seasons when you got to be the teacher. There's seasons but at the end of the day, especially when you get older, how do I end up where it's like, man, we love to hang out. Let's go see a movie together. We want to get, they love to be around us. So I think about that. I want to start thinking about how I'm going to parent in regards to I want to end up where, you know what I mean? And it's hard to think that far ahead. So maybe you just think one season ahead. But so I think thinking with the end in mind, same thing is like if you want to, hey, I want to retire at 63 or I want to be able to do this and I want to be able to travel when I'm 50s and I want to do this. Okay, then you need to start thinking, how do I position? So I love that when you said vision, but I like to even say practically picture the end in mind and what do you want to do to get there? I think that was so golden. I also like that you said ask I want to say wise, but even if they're not, ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. Ask why. I mean, how do you get wise answers? Ask wise questions. But I think even dumb questions are fine if you're asking the right people.
Yep.
So I think one of the things you also said on there, and we mentioned this, seek out counsel. I think it takes humility to do that today.
Yep.
Who is in your life? If you're young and you're like wanting to parent and you got questions about that, find another couple who's parented and say, can we go grab lunch sometime? You know, can I come? You know, and I want to pick your brain about what you guys have done and how have you handled these kind of situations. I think it's pride that gets in the way of asking wise people financially. Go to I put off. Let me just say this. I put off for years. I shared this with our church once. I put off for years having a conversation with a financial advisor. It just made me almost like nauseous to think about retirement. I mean, I've been saving. I've been putting money away in retirement as I'm getting older. I've been doing all that. But there was money that I just had sitting out there from previous job. I didn't whatever. I went and finally met with one last year, and it was like, you need to move that money over out of this and that. I was like, I should? Yeah, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do, and I never asked.
But you know what, though? Sorry.
14 years went by.
Yeah.
You know what's so
and
crazy?
I shared with their church, like, how much money that might end up becoming, having enough time that I could end up have lost. Just not adding any more money to it, just moving it. There's the potential that I could have lost $1 million.
But you know what I think so cool is I think it's sorry one last thoughts, but in this may sound ethereal, but I just think it's really important. You learned from that moment, but you also probably learned even more by listening to how he thinks. And one of the things that I was thinking about this a few weeks ago, I feel like knowledge is taught, but wisdom is caught. I think wisdom is actually more of an essence that's imparted. Like when I think about any times that I am hopefully operating in wisdom, I think back and I'm like, oh, I'm subconsciously doing what past mentors and pastors I saw them do. And it's kind of like at the end of what's the book? Is it Deuteronomy or Joshua? Or at the end of Deuteronomy, it says that that Joshua, when the baton was passed from Moses to Joshua, it says, and Moses laid hands on Joshua, and the spirit of wisdom came on him. And really, whether it's a physical laying on of hands, true wisdom is more of an essence that's imparted.
It's
imparted.
Where knowledge is information that's received.
I like that.
That's good. What I was going to say, and you did a lot of great things when you talked about practically how you can gain wisdom, but especially someone who's a little younger, who still has probably more of their leadership journey ahead of them than what's behind me. I think for me, just shutting up and observing. Like when I step into a situation, hey, who are the people around me that I know are wiser, who I know have more to offer? Not that I'm doubting what I have or what I have to offer, but in a moment, understanding my place and time and saying, okay, now is my time to be quiet and to listen and to watch and observe. And it's not really an age thing because I think no matter how old you get, like there's still people you can observe and do that.
Absolutely.
But I think it's probably a little bit maybe more important the younger you are as you're listening to this. And I just think, it's another practical way. I find people in my life who I look at and admire and say, man, there's something about them that I like, or there's something about them that I desire to have in my life.
Model.
And so
I want to model my life after them. And there's nothing wrong with
just
that.
Watch.
I think there's nothing wrong with that. Well, I agree. I think it has nothing to do with the age. I think we always have room to grow no matter how old we are. And so in fact, even, it won't be when this episode comes out, but even this weekend, I'm going to be going to with a group of other senior pastors from all over the country coming together literally to share ideas, to learn from each other. And so, it's like I want to continue to make investments like that in my life and my journey because I can learn from anybody and other people. And hopefully that makes me a better leader. Hopefully I become a better person. But, I think, again, all of these things are great, but I just am reminded what Jesus said, where none of having all of the right answers means nothing if you don't actually apply it. The whole parable I love. I love the parable of the wise builder and the foolish builder. And the foolish builder builds his house on sand, and the wise builder builds it on a rock. And the whole essence of that is, he said, the person who hears what I'm saying and puts it into practice is like the wise builder.
Yeah, that's good.
And they both had houses that looked very similar. It wasn't until a future storm came that you found out who was wise.
So how
And-
do you become wise? You pursue wisdom, and then you practice wisdom.
You practice it.
Practice
And you have to
it.
practice it in a very practical way. You have to make some decisions that might be challenging in life to make. You have to humble yourself. You have to learn from others.
Hey, great question. We've talked about this before. Is power feedback? Ask the people
Yeah.
around you to speak into your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What,
do you have a
what do
mentor?
you see that concerns you?
How about this? Do you have a mentor?
Yeah.
Do you have somebody you
Right.
look up to? Do you have someone you respect? You know, that you're asked and that you can share, hey, and it doesn't even have to be like, I send you a text this week. I'm like, I don't know how I want to respond to this person because here's how I emotionally feel. What do you think I should do? Because this is what I want to do.
You did do
Yeah, I probably would. I sent that to 2 people. I sent it to someone older than me too, and I sent it to you. Both had the same answer. I'm like, okay, that's probably what I need to do. But what was I doing in that moment? As I think back, I was trying not to respond out of emotion.
Yeah.
I wanted to. There's things I wanted to say out of emotion. I wrote you a long book. I said, I need some advice. And I said, it was really long text. I wrote it out. And it was just because I knew in that moment, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, but as I get a little bit older, I'm starting to really identify. And I don't think when I'm younger, I think I would have classified something in passion. I would have thought I was always right. And you can be right about something and then be completely wrong
in
in
your
how you go
approach.
about doing it, and you
Yeah.
destroy. I've done that
Destroys a
so many
relationship.
times.
So not to drag it out, but you just brought up something that's I think when you're surrounding yourself with wise people, I think 3 things we need 3 areas to apply that wisdom. Number 1 is just in general surround yourself with wise people and you'll become wise.
Yeah.
Number 2, big decisions in life.
Yeah.
Safety's found in the multitude of counselors. But also what you just said is I think in life when emotion
Yeah.
is high.
Yeah.
That is another
Yes,
really
yes.
great
That's a
time
really good
because I
time.
told you almost similar to you, but I think I told you this morning. I had a situation where I was about to send somebody a long text.
Yeah.
and I
You did the same thing. You texted a
and I-
friend
and
and
I
was
had
like,
a
yo,
friend, I
bro.
said, hey, I'm about to send this, and
Yeah,
he
right,
said,
no.
no,
No,
you're
you're
not.
not.
Do it.
No, you're not. And then a few days later, I was like, oh God, I'm glad.
See, regret would have been just following the passion of the moment. Regret would have been I do think that if we'll just wrap this up, but I do think that the majority, and you could probably, I'm not saying all, but I would bet 80 to 90% of our regrets in life are attached to allowing our emotions to lead us.
Yeah.
In every area,
and you know
every
what-
area, financial,
Financial,
relationally,
yeah,
everything. It's we made a decision compulsively. We made a decision because of emotion, out of emotion. We didn't stop. We didn't think. I bet it's as high as 90%.
And I think that's why the power of that question, to go back to it, is the simplicity and clarity of the question. What's the wise thing to do? Because the phrasing of that question takes out emotion.
Yeah.
Because maybe say it this way, if I don't ask myself intentionally what's the wise thing to do, what I'm gonna subtly, subconsciously ask myself is what do I want to do.
Oh, of course.
But if
and you'll
I-
convince yourself.
But if I can make myself get in the pattern of what's the wise thing to do,
Yeah.
that makes me ask a different question, and it kind of clarifies. It's like, okay, that makes me put my emotions and everything I'm feeling on a different table.
Yeah.
And it almost gives me this hopefully objective place to be like, okay, if I wasn't so angry, if my flesh wasn't so tempted,
Yeah.
if I wasn't so, what am I going to? I love Donna Miller calls it the 1-year test too. This has helped me in situations. I heard him say 10 years ago in some blog article that sometimes when he's in a really complex situation, he asks himself, a year from now, how will I be proud that I handled this? And he says usually if he can approach any situation with both kindness and strength, then he'll be proud of himself a year later.
Wow. That's
good.
good. My dad always had a 3-day test with buying stuff. If I want to buy something
Yeah.
that I really want that's kind of expensive, I think he, like, for himself sets it's like, oh, if it's over $100 or if it's over whatever. If I want to buy something that's really expensive I really want, make myself wait 3 days. You're just trying to avoid
Right.
the impulsive
Right.
decision that you're going to regret later.
Right.
And so, again, I think that's just wisdom. Apply, but again, at the end of the day, none of these things that we're talking about matter if you don't actually put it to work in your
Right.
life. And that
Yeah.
is so hard to do.
Yeah.
That is hard.
It's easy to talk about.
It
It
is.
is.
And you know what I try to encourage people with is, something you really want. I said this years ago in a message. I was talking about finances, actually, when it comes to saving and debt, is I said the phrase this way: it's not no, it's not now.
That's good.
It's not no, If you could tell yourself the thing I really want, the thing I want to do, the thing I want, it's not that I'm telling myself, no, you can't have it, you can't do it. I'm saying it's not now. It's not right now.
That's good.
At some point I'm going to. So I'm going to save for, I'm going to, whatever. So whatever. So
That's good.
hopefully this is, I don't know, hopefully this has been helpful for anybody that's listening or watching this. That all I know is I think all of us want to get to a point in our life, we get a little bit older, that we look back, we're all going to have some regrets.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have a life filled with regret so much that, especially in the things that matter.
Yeah.
I want to live well.
Yeah, I like that. Wisdom
live
is
well.
what? Wisdom
Is
is
the skill of how to live well.
the skill
Of
of
to live
living
well.
To living well. That's so good.
That is really
And a
good.
couple great things you can take with you. Again, for if you're wondering what the quote was, he said from Andy Stanley, it's so good. In light of my past experiences, or even says past mistakes, I can't remember. And in light of my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do?
He
And so
calls that the best question ever.
it really is, because you're asking that question. What have I screwed up in the past? What have I regretted because of my past? Where do I really want to end up based on that? That's what I want to do. So not the, and so I even love it because I think he even says we often ask what's the right thing to do. We should be asking what's the wise thing to do, because even the right thing done wrong is wrong. It's wrong. So anyways, well, we hope this has been helpful of a conversation, and thank you for joining with us today. We'd love for you to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever platform, and leave a comment or send us an email to podcast@thex.church. And so thank you guys for coming.
Thanks
You
for
guys
having
are
us
both wise. I learn from you guys all the time. So thank you.
You too. And
Oh,
you know
I
what?
appreciate that.
This conversation makes me want to live better.
It does.
That's it.
It does.
I want to live better. I want to make better. So make better choices. That's how we're leaving it today. Make better choices. Until next time, we'll see you. Have a great week.